All right, guys and gals, here we are on the YouTubes live. This is Jay with Prepared Citizens, and we got Chuck, Homestead Medical.
All right.
We're just going to talk about some medical stuff, guys. We ain't got
Sure.
nothing crazy planned for y'all. We're just going to get some of Chuck's knowledge and go from there. So, heck, Chuck, tell us about you. What you got going on, man?
Well, I've been busy lately teaching a bunch of classes, some of my material and stuff, and then the whole festival conference season's coming up. October. I've got 3 in October alone: self-reliance and mountain readiness, and Kentucky sustainable living coming up. So I'll be there speaking at all 3 of them, and also my vendor booth.
Heck yeah. And I know I've probably mentioned this on other lives with other folks, but I always try to tell people you're one of the only dudes I know of that's doing the live tissue training and stuff. So if anybody's in his area, definitely sign up for that. That's the real deal.
Yeah, we do. We're probably I'm the only one that I know of doing it. We usually, Lewis from Tactical Responses does the instruction on the live fire part, but we actually do some small unit tactics, and then we do live tissue, within it, where we do. It's usually a 3-day class with everything, but it's a pretty intense class, but it's the closest thing you're going to have to the real thing that you could train on and do, and you can actually see what works, what doesn't work, and you actually get to see that you don't have enough gauze. That one packet of wound packing gauze is not going to get the job done. And we have a lot of fun. We put it together because we saw kind of a gap in the training, and we do it at one spot in Ohio, and got one vet that works with us and stuff with it, and we've turned it into a really good program, and we've had several people come through it, and they seem to enjoy it, and we're going to keep doing it as long as we can.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I know, like in my little classes, I just do the stop the bleed stuff. I use the pulse oximeter just for
Yeah.
testing, on people's arms. But I tell people, I'm like, but in the real world, you're gonna be looking at bleeding. You're not, in your class, that's actually where you get that skill in training. So that's pretty cool.
We do a lot of bleeding control things, and looking at different types of wounds and lacerations. Actually do chest decompression. The whole thing, we're able to recreate that, and they actually get to see what works, what doesn't work, how important those skills are, and then we put it all together on the last day with a live fire small unit tactics exercise, where they're actually putting those skills to work on and live tissue, where they're actually treating that animal during that. So it's logistically, it's a lot, but it's come together real well, and we hope to have one this fall. We're in the process of planning one now, and just get a hold of me if you're interested, and I'll let you know once we get the dates confirmed, and we'll do it.
At some point, I'm definitely gonna be doing that.
Yeah, man.
I mean, you can't replace that knowledge you'd get from that. You can't really get that anywhere else out of a book or anything.
No, you can't, and it's been different every time, and it's the skills, and you see the light bulbs popping on in people's head. You could see them as they're doing it. They're going, oh, and they start to see all the stuff, and dispels the mist. Everybody thinks it's something of doing wound packing on a silicone trainer, or even if you're pumping fake blood in it and stuff, but there's nothing like doing the real thing. And then they actually get to see the wound diameter, how small, gunshot wounds can be for 9mm, 22, stuff like that. And the importance of a blood sweep, because not all bullet wounds bleed, chest cavity and abdominal area, they don't bleed, and how easy it is to meet. And a blood sweep is not those flat hands while you're raking, why you have to do that, and the importance of those little things, because you can miss a fatal injury, something that could turn fatal real quick if it's not treated quickly. So it's a lot. We enjoy it, always have a good time. We've got a fantastic facility where we do it at, and just the people who do it. And Lewis does an incredible job with the firearms portion of it and the scenarios he comes up with, and we work together incorporating that together. So it's a lot of fun. It's probably my favorite class to teach, because you really get to see the light bulbs come on and people do it, especially people who have had a lot of medical training on the other stuff. But when they get to put it together and see, they learn a lot from it. I mean, it's a lot of lessons learned.
Yeah, I bet. You know, even from doing what little bit of instructing I do, and guys, for the record, I know I've said this on videos and stuff. I don't even claim to be an expert on any of this stuff. I learn from experts, and Chuck's is one of those guys I consider an expert. So
Well,
anything that Chuck says normally you can take to the bank. I about promise you that.
well, thank you, but I learned from you too, and the stuff you make, and you know, your products. You know, I think that's probably one of the most ingenious things that somebody's came up with, to be able to attach a tourniquet to, you know, a rifle stuff. A lot of people could do it to the sling, but what you've come up with, I mean, I push that out. I tell people all the time, and they're like, "What is this?" And I
Yeah,
actually take it to classes and stuff now and show them.
I will
Um,
say the classes like you do would probably open more people's eyes. Like those people would probably have their eyes open to something like what I'm making more than anybody. Most people that's never done that kind of training they just don't think about it.
No, and you know, people think, you know, you want to be prepared, and people carry firearms and do that, but you know, those bullets come back at you, and you've got to be prepared. You've got to be able to carry, you know, and I do it every day. Carry the tourniquet, you know,
Yeah,
and have it on you, and have those medical things on you. You know, the things that'll kill you in 5 minutes or less, those should be on your body,
yeah,
and also have a more extensive medical kit close by with you. And it's building layers. You know, it's layers of medical protection. It's layers of, just like anything else. You have those things close to you on your body, and it's not just, you know, having an IFAK because you're going into battle with a zombie apocalypse. It's not it. I mean, it's, you know, you're at home, you're operating a chainsaw, you're doing things like that. You know, if you don't have it, you've got 90 seconds, and you make that mistake, that quick little 2-second mistake with the chainsaw could kill you.
yeah. Yeah, you and there's one other paramedic that's at our local fire station. I believe that's who it was. They said that's the only tourniquets they've used on the civilian side of things is chainsaw accidents.
I used a couple on gunshot wounds, but that was very rare. You know, in the civilian side, all the rest tourniquets and stuff I've used, and arterial bleeds that I've seen, have all been chainsaw or home accidents. I had one where a guy, um, and I tell this story in my classes. He was on the phone talking. He maybe had a little alcohol and was in an argument with his girlfriend, and got mad and kicked a mirror that was on the back of a door, you know, full length mirror, and it came down and it got both arteries in his ankle, you know, and stuff. And he, you know, he was bleeding out when we got there. So it doesn't, it could be anything that does that, but when you're not prepared and you don't have it close by, you know, he was just lucky because when the ambulances were dispatched, they were close. They were very
Yeah,
close to him. But others, um, you know, there's people that die. You see it in the news every day, where tractor accidents, chainsaw accidents, things like that. You should have it on you. And I tell people, attach that $30 life-saving device to your chainsaw or to your chaps or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Hey, for anybody that doesn't know, SOE Tactical, they have a good channel. You need to go follow that. But Chuck, I don't remember if it's to the public or not. I think it is the chainsaw training y'all did.
Yeah, yeah.
That was awesome stuff. I mean, I learned a lot just watching those videos. For anybody that runs chainsaws, go to SOE Tactical's channel and look up those chainsaw videos. That's some cool
It
stuff.
was funny because, I mean, I was there. I did a little portion of the class, medical stuff, but I was also taking the class. Chris Watkins, who's kind of part of the community, he taught the class, and I was standing there with Jeff, you know, Scully and Tim Riley and several people who are in the community. And we're, you know, during the whole class, Chris is showing stuff or talking about stuff, and we're going, man, I've been doing that wrong the whole time. I'm lucky I'm still alive. I can't believe I haven't killed myself, you know, and it was a good class. We even took a pair of chaps and put
Yes.
a chainsaw in it, so you can see what it looks like. And I've been talking to Chris and John. I think he's going to do another class. He's a wealth of information because he runs chainsaws every single day. You know, he runs crews that are, you know, that work for, you know, they do contracts with the power company in cities and clearing lines and stuff. So he's a wealth of information. But that right there is a real it's a real deal thing. If you don't have it and have that stuff, you can easily cut yourself with a chainsaw. I've seen some nasty, nasty wounds, and people have died from it. You know,
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever seen that, was in that video with the
yeah,
chaps, that was
yeah.
pretty cool. But yeah, that's definitely one of the most common things and here it is coming up on fall, it's about to start getting cold and everybody's probably already getting firewood ready. So that's definitely something to think about for everybody out there.
Well, and it's not just that. Motorcycles, things like that. I've seen, anybody who works in EMS has seen a motorcycle accident where,
Yeah.
it's you can have those accidents, car accidents too. It's just everyday stuff that happens, and you should be prepared medically and order the equipment from people who vet the people you're ordering from, like you or my company or whoever, because I tell people, you don't want to order from me, order from you, order from Refuge, whoever,
Yeah.
people who are selling quality equipment who also know what they're doing. Same thing with your classes you take. Vet your instructor.
Yeah.
Anybody can teach this stuff, and there's a lot of people teaching stop the bleeding stuff who can barely spell tourniquet and have never applied one on somebody, and you could tell in a heartbeat. But the thing is that good instructors who are providing quality instruction so that you're getting proper skills taught to you by the right people, and that's one of the most important things. You can have all the equipment in the world, you can have a warehouse full of equipment. If you don't know how to use it, it's useless.
Yeah, I agree totally. Um, let's see. I was gonna ask you about have you messed with the Slishman pressure wraps?
Oh yeah, I sell them.
I love
um,
it. I know I do too. I love those things.
Dr. Slishman, I tell you, I had a conversation with this funny when I was looking for the company, because I ordered a couple for my grandsons. And that's why. And I thought, man, this is, I like this. I want to find out more about it. So I finally found a phone number from the company. It was kind of hard to find. And I called and I get hello. And it was
Yeah.
Dr. Slishman. And talking to him, and I became a distributor after that conversation. And
Yeah.
he's great. Him and his wife and everything, they run the whole company. And he's got people in EMS that are familiar with, like, the Slishman traction splint. He makes a splint too, and
Yes.
a couple other products. But the wrap, I think, is one of I think it's the best tourniquet for small children, infants, and stuff like that, because you don't have all that pressure going down in a central spot. You can disperse it up the limb, and you're not going to cause any, growth plate damage or any muscle or tendon damage. And that can be easily done with a bigger turn, because they're not small adults. They're kids. Their anatomy and their body is different. And for that, I think it's just, and it's easy to use. It's very easy to use, and it's a multi-use thing. You can also use it as a pressure wrap. You can
Yeah.
use it on canines and animals and things like that. So I think it's a great piece of equipment. I really push that because it's something I carry. It's something I would use if I had to. I've never used one on a patient, but he puts out data and sends us emails. I'm sure you get the same
Yeah.
emails and stuff all the time. He provides great support.
Yeah. He is. Man, I love talking to him. I've asked him, several questions about, bleeding and things like that. So I enjoy hearing his point of view from, because I was a grunt in the military. I mean, I was taught bare basics.
Right.
I was fortunate when I was in, we were still doing the IVs, how to start IVs and stuff. That was cool. But my level of knowledge on tourniquets and stuff comes from a grunt point of view, tactical response, this kind of stuff, that type of training. And where he approaches it from the, what's that? What would we say? The proper, I guess, medical
Yeah.
way of doing things. And, he's talking about, trying to keep the pain minimal and all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's good. He's trying to kind of merge these two worlds together with that Slishman pressure wrap. I think that's cool.
It is. And I mean, I've sold, I don't know how many I've sold, and
Yeah.
it's a popular product, and I really like what he does. And I think it's a really kind of a slept on product in the medical world. To
Yeah,
me,
I agree.
it's a valuable, I think it's a must have for any any parents who have children, I think that should be absolute, um, a must have. If and people ask me, what's something I should have, and I tell them the basics. But do you have kids? Yeah, Schlissman wrap, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think
What's
it's the
going
number
on,
one
Freedom?
thing.
Yeah, I've got one. It's one of the orange ones. And it's one, as soon as I called him, I think Refuge is where I first saw it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was where I first saw it. And I was like, man, that looks pretty cool. It looks like that works. So like you, I kind of found out where it come from and got in touch with him. And he was like, let me send you one. Just let me send you one.
Yeah.
You can play with it. He's like, if you like it, that's awesome. If not, no hard feelings. But the one, I think it's in my box, but I guarantee you that thing has been applied. It looks rough. It's probably been applied over 200 times. I mean, it's still, and he just sent me another one. Yeah, he just sent me this one. He's applied a bunch of times in training. And he told me, he's like, I want you to shoot this one next time you go to a range and then see how it works. So, so
Good idea.
that's pretty cool. We're going to test that too. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the neatest things I've seen someone come up
It
with.
is, and it's small. It makes sense, and I just think it's a must have. Have it, and I've got several that I use. And with training tourniquets and stuff like that, they only last so long because they're applied. But those,
Yeah.
it's the same ones. It's the same ones that I've had since I started using them, and I started selling them early on, and it may have even before I think even Refuge did, or maybe shortly around the same time we
Oh,
started
wow.
putting them. But I've never had to change those out, and I use them every single class and pass them around. And it's
Awesome.
usually in classes, it's one of the most talked about piece of equipment that they see and look at. They're like, oh, I didn't even know this was a thing. And usually that's always, well, do you have them? Can you sell me one?
Yeah.
It's a must have. I think, to get. And there's a lot of equipment like that people think of. I mean, everybody thinks about the tourniquets, chest seals, and pressure dressings and stuff, but people don't think about simple things like having a headlamp. I've got one. I did one. Right here. This simple headlamp that actually tilts to put in your medical gear because people get hurt at dark. They get sick. You need your hands. You need to be able to see. And also using it during the day. I mean, when I worked, and especially when I worked in remote areas and I was overseas, I would get up in the morning, put all my stuff on, stuff my pockets full, and then my headlamp literally went around my neck and stayed there because I was using it all day long to look at wounds and stuff. Even when in a well lit room, I'm still using that to focus that light on. And it's amazing what you don't see with the naked eye, even in a well lit room. And you put focused a brighter light in there, you'll start seeing little pieces of thing like in a wound debridement and stuff that you didn't see. You're like, glad I had my light on. Now that would have been in that cut. So, and I use that in classes now. I actually have people start doing it when we're doing, um, I'll go buy like boneless pork ribs or something. And I'll actually make wounds and stuff in them, and they'll do wound care and fleshing them and stuff. And, I'll have them do it without for a while, then put a headlamp on and look, and they're like, oh my God, I didn't miss, it'll be in a well lit room. So it's just little things like that people, I don't think of that's important, but you're not going to think of it until you need it when you're sitting in the dark and you're trying to do something and you can't see.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's not a headlamp. I got a headlamp in my Forerunner, but in my pocket every day, I always keep this. I got gym shorts on now because it's getting late and I'm old. But during the day, I carry this little stream light. It's a little
Yeah, I know what
USB.
I've seen you. Yeah,
the double clip, you can put it
yeah,
on your hat. Because I normally wear a hat. I think that's pretty cool for somebody. If you ain't going to have a headlamp, at least
right.
have with the
And that's why
capability.
I carry a Surefire stiletto, and it's got a clip. It's for the pocket, but it goes perfect on a hat that you can put it
Cool.
on. If you don't have a headlamp, it's the same thing. But yeah, I know exactly what Streamlight. I used to carry one, but lights and just it's little things that I don't think people think of, and that's going to good classes, good instructors, like yourself, who's going to give them those tips and
Yeah.
little things that they don't think of. That's that golden nugget of knowledge that you can come away with that you can apply every day.
Yeah. Speaking of tips, one I always like to give people. I wish I had it's on my nightstand, but I carry the ETQ wide, and I keep there you go. I keep a set of gloves inside of it, rubber banded to it, just in case if I'm using on somebody that I'm not
You
family
know
or
what?
whatever.
Just saying that's a good idea. I keep a set of gloves in me, it'll be in another pocket. And I've thought of that before, but now that you're saying it, I remember thinking about I got to do that. And now that you're saying that, I'm going to go do that. And you may have mentioned it to me before, but that's a great idea, and that's why I like doing that in the communities. Our community, medical instructors and stuff around, there's a discourse. You don't have people. It's like they're trying to outdo each other. You don't want to talk or you don't want to promote. And I, I think we should support each other, and
Right.
promote each other, because that's what I like is just something like that. That little thing right there that you could take back and go, oh man, that's a great idea. Um, and you should support it, and we should support each other. I mean, I tell people in my class, anybody's taking my class, will tell you, hey, you don't buy from me, buy from here, buy from here, buy from here. I try to
Yes.
support people.
Yeah, and honestly, talking about that, the glove thing, it wasn't even me that come up with that. I saw that. It might have been at Tactical Response on Alumni Weekend. I saw somebody doing that, and I
Yeah,
think that was.
it's
I want to say that's where it come from. So it was
there's
somebody else.
there's maybe one or two tips I've came up with myself, and the other ones have always been see somebody else or something like this. Hey,
Yeah,
do this, and I always try to remember who's told me. So and so is the one who told me this, and it's just stuff you learn over the years and as you're experienced of what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, there's some things that you could teach a standard book or standard textbook thing, but I always try to tell people, hey, this is what I found works a little easier, or kind of do it this way, because when you do it this way, it's a little harder. This way's better. You learn by doing, and you learn from your mistakes, and what works and what doesn't work. And I think passing that on, exactly,
I
exactly.
got I got this book idea from you.
Yeah, that Where There's No Dentist, Ditch Medicine by Hugh Coffey. That's like a Bible to me. But yeah, all those books are tremendous. It's funny you mentioned that book. Uh, I had a student in class last weekend, and he just finished reading Ditch Medicine right before he came, and he was telling me
Okay.
about it. But it's fun. I like to pass on that stuff because that's stuff I use as references. When I
Yeah,
traveled overseas, worked in different places and around the country, right there's one of the books I always had with me, because you can't remember all this. And when you come across something unusual or something you don't see everywhere, it's not bad to have a quick manual you can go to from a source you can trust to refresh your memory on it.
I agree. Yeah, I tell people anyway, like if the power goes out everywhere for X amount of months, it's always nice to have these books too that you can like physically look at. Um, it's funny. I'm gonna get you to tell it. The story about when you went overseas and you became a dentist for a day.
Oh yeah.
You had to pull a tooth or something like that, and you were like, "I ain't no dentist," and it's like you are today.
Well, I was the new medic, and we went out, and there was some of the the people who live there in country, the natives there, and we went out and we were doing a little thing, to help them out. And I was the new guy, and they were like, they were telling me this, and some people came up and they had bad teeth. We had to pull teeth, and I'm like, and I don't know how to pull tooth. I'm not a dentist. And the other medic, he was an experienced medic. He's former military, AT Delta guy, and he said, "Come here." And he walks over and he literally takes this guy and he had a tooth extractor. He pulls in and he yanks that tooth out, because we didn't have the amount of lidocaine needed and do all that stuff. So we were kind of doing ditch medicine. And he showed me the technique on how to do it and rock it out and do everything. And he went, "That's how you do it." And he hands me the tooth extractor with the tooth still in it. And he goes, "I'll see you later." And there's like 3 more people standing there waiting to do,
Oh man,
for me to do it. And that was my in service on how to pull a tooth.
there you
So
go. And that's when Chuck became a dentist.
yes, yes, that's when I'll never say I'm a dentist, but that's when I dental emergencies became something I need to study on. That's when I got the started looking at some books and, well, I better learn this. If this is stuff I'm going to come up and have to deal with, I need to. educate myself better. And I did that. And when I came back on leave one time, I went and, talked with the dentist for a day, and he showed me some stuff, told me some stuff. And then I got the book, just like Where There's No Doctor, I got Where There's No Dentist, and just to learn stuff, because we're very resource poor on a lot of stuff like that. But you're trying to help the local nationals. And, you have to kind of do a ditch medicine thing, and you have to kind of improvise. And you're reverting back to the late 18th century where you're pulling teeth the old fashioned way, and I've never had it done, but man, it looks painful. I've done it. I know it hurts, but there's some tough people in some other countries who went through it, and they barely whimpered. And I'm like, and you're tougher than me. I mean, I don't know how they did it, but it's stuff you have to learn. And that's kind of the things I'm teaching. It's a lot of people teach how to stop the bleed and stuff, put that tourniquet on stuff, but what do you do next? What if you have to take care of them for 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months? How do you take care of that? That tourniquet's got to come off. You've got to convert it. Are you putting a hasty tourniquet on? Or are you putting a deliberate tourniquet on? Care under fire or anything that's, high and tight. And most classes we're teaching civilians a hasty tourniquet because that's easy for them to remember. But, in deliberate tourniquet, where you're only putting it a few inches above the wound, that's something. But how do you convert it from a hasty tourniquet down to a deliberate tourniquet, or, actually convert that tourniquet off? If you've got, proper wound packing, you've stopped that bleed, it's clotted, you've got a pressure dressing, and going through the steps. And it's not an easy thing, because, you can harm flesh, you can harm a limb from having a tourniquet on too long. I mean, 4 hours is the goal. But obviously, we want blood flow restored to that flesh and that tissue as quick as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of which, talking about packing a wound, I know you and I have been. I guess Tactical Response did too. Not many people out there talk about the standard gauze being as good as like the hemostatic gauze. And I tell people, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but from all my training that I've had and like learning from guys, it's has a lot to do with your technique on how you pack that wound that's gonna effectively do that.
Well, people teach it, and if you look at it, I'm not saying all instructors do this. There's some really good programs out there that teach it properly and teach proper technique and stuff. But when you're packing it, starting it, putting that little starter ball on the end, of the gauze, and putting it, but it's holding pressure the whole time while you're packing that wound and doing that, and then holding pressure afterwards. But yeah, I tell people standard gauze. I mean, Quick Clot's a great product.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to pay $65 for a package of combat gauze. They can't afford it. But does it work? Yes. Does it help? Yeah. There's studies conflicting. There's some studies that it only helps this much. There's some studies that says a lot. Where I think hemostatic gauze really comes into play are the pocket wounds, pelvic, and these arteries up here that really help out. But, you're going to use one packet of combat gauze, and then you're going to have another packet following it up of regular wound packing gauze in it. Wound packing gauze is a tighter weave, but regular rolled gauze, if that's what you have, of course you can use it. As long as it's clean, you're not putting any other debris and stuff in there. I think it works. I've used it. I've done it. It seems to work just as well, but I think it's very much technique based, that you can get it to be just as effective.
Yeah, I've a couple of people that's asked me that. I'm like, if you didn't pack it tightly up against the artery that needs it the most correctly, it don't matter what you got, it ain't gonna work good. But yeah, that's always an internet argument.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of internet experts out there, and there's people, but I've tried to learn from all of our trauma medicine comes from the battlefield. Over the years, if you look back when EMS started with a white paper in the 1970s, they were basing all that knowledge from medics in the Vietnam War, and it's just always evolved and stuff. I mean, when I started as a paramedic, we were pushing fluids. Somebody, if they were bled out, or they, hemostatically were down, we're pushing, lactated ringers and saline and stuff. And we used to be, make them bleed pink. You want that fluids to full volume.
Yeah.
Well, 15 years later, they're going, I think we're killing people. We're doing that wrong. Well, sorry, we probably ought to be giving them blood. So, now that's the thing. And you hold off on the fluids. So it evolves. But all that came from when I started in EMS, tourniquet was last resort. It still was the last resort. We still did direct pressure and, elevation and pressure points and then a tourniquet, and you don't want to leave that on and all that stuff. And then the Gulf War happened and we went, well, you know what? These actually do save lives. We probably ought to use them first. And the modern tourniquets were developed then. So it changes, but that's where all of our medicine comes from, is the battlefield. And I've taken the time. I've learned a lot from current and former special operations medics, regular medics, stuff like that, who've been there, done that, and they've seen, gross amounts of trauma, and they know what works and what techniques work because they're developing it as they're doing it, because they're seeing this mass amount of injuries from bullet wounds and shrapnel and the IEDs and stuff. So they're really the true pioneers and professors of the modern trauma medicine that we use today.
Yeah, definitely. It's I've talked to a couple of guys that were like, I guess it was late 90s when they were in, and they were talking about how the phases went, like use a tourniquet, don't use a tourniquet.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to use a tourniquet.
Yeah.
And all that.
It's funny, and people don't believe that. They're like, well, I just thought you always use tourniquets. No.
You're
Now,
right.
it used to be an evil thing. Oh, God, no, we don't want to do it. You put a tourniquet on there, they'll lose a limb.
And
That was the days of field expedient tourniquet, taking a stick and a belt or a band, and stuff like that, or a bandana or something, or even the old cravats. They actually taught that. I've still got the old manuals, the military, manuals of care that show that how to do, make a tourniquet using a cravat. I mean, it's crazy, but that's where our medicine was, and it's not that old. Our modern trauma medicine today is not that old, considering what's developed since the late 80s and on.
Yeah, definitely. It's and I was told once too, paramedics and stuff, it wasn't too terribly long ago, like wasn't even allowed to have tourniquets on the ambulance and stuff like that.
West Virginia, where I'm at, when I worked, I was actually working for a couple of years. I worked at the state office of EMS in West Virginia, and we actually brought on the tourniquets from that early. We were one of the first states that adopted it, but there were states that went on for years that didn't have it, and to this day, you would think paramedics, when they go to work, they'd have a tourniquet on them. They still don't. And there's still ambulance service. You'll go in and it's buried in a bag or on a shelf or something, still in the package and everything. And I'm, and I also still see law enforcement officers today. And I've done it a couple times where they'll have it in their, in their overshirt vest carrier. And, they'll have their pouch. There's their tourniquet. And I can see it still in the package. And I'll walk up and I'll go, hey, can I do something? Don't shoot me. And I've taken their tourniquet out of the package, taken it, staged it, put it back. And I said, you'll thank me if you ever have to use that. It's just poor training and poor knowledge. But, especially younger ones, that should be the older guys should correct that. But there's still EMS agencies this day. I promise you, there's ambulances running on the street right now where the tourniquets are on the shelf or buried in a bag, still in a package. Should be on them. Now, there are medics I know. And there's medics, good medics who they've got a tourniquet on them so they can get it quick, because when you need it right then. But that's just the state of our medical system as it is today. They don't push it enough of the importance of it still.
Yeah, it's always a good thing if anybody buys any medical stuff, take it out of the package. Like even if you buy like a bag, take it all out. Make sure everything's kind of ready to go. Put it where you want it, where you're going to remember it. I couldn't imagine needing a tourniquet and trying to pull it out of some of these things. Like,
yeah. Well, and imagine, I mean, how many students have you had that have never seen a pressure dressing? They've never taken one out of the package, and they've never seen it, and they're carrying that stuff. You got plenty of guys who train and do the firearms training. They've got their IFACs and everything, and they've never looked at it. They've never trained with it. They've never seen what a pressure dressing is, how it works. And depending on the type you have, Do you have, like a North American Rescue one? Do you have an Olays bandage? Do you have an old, Israeli bandage? They all kind of work a little different and have different aspects. So, it amazes me that people don't take the time. I get it. It's money. You don't want to open that bandage up, but, I'd rather spend the $10 and see what I have and how it works. So if I ever have to use it, I'd do it.
Yeah, I tell people, I know it sucks. Like you said, you got to spend a little extra money, but buy two of everything. And, you're going to have the tourniquet you carry, and you got one to look at it, train with it, test it,
I've had people in class when I tell them, I say, never, the tourniquet you carry, never train with it. That's meant to be used for one time. I wouldn't take the risk. Would it probably work? It could, probably would still, but why risk it? Get a training tourniquet. And I've had people who had a tourniquet on them in class, and they would walk up to me afterwards and went, I need to buy a new tourniquet. I've trained with this and I need to have one, and understanding the importance, because tourniquets are meant for one thing, one person.
Right.
Oh, Midwest preparedness.
Yeah, Midwest said, hey.
Yeah.
Doing good, brother.
But yeah, people just don't realize, I think, some of the importance of looking at your gear, what you need, what you have, and training with. And that's why I think it's the importance of going to classes you put on, classes I put on, the other people, is then you get your hands on it. And the instructor is going to explain it. And I'm honest with people when they ask me, they said, what gear do you prefer? They always ask me, what do you use? And I take all my bags and everything. I said, you can look at my gear, go through it. You'll see what I use. And it's the stuff that I train with. And I've got different, I put out all the different types of pressure bandages and stuff out there so they can see what they like. But, I recommend a windlass tourniquet. I recommend a cat or a soft T because I've used them on people. I've never used this on somebody, but I tested the crap out of this, as much as I can, and taught classes and handed it to cops and firefighters and big, no neck muscle bound guys, and say, here, break this. And we haven't got this to fail. And that's why I'm carrying it now. I believe in it so much. I carry it on my body every day because it's 33% smaller than a cat tourniquet. It's easier to carry, and it works as far as I'm concerned. We got the thin one to fail. I believe it's a live tissue class. We got a couple of them to fail and break, the thin one, but the wide ones and all the classes, I've got training ones, we can't get them to break. We've tried and they won't do it. And I believe they will. And I've tested it with Dopplers and, pulse oxes, the whole thing. And it works. I'm confident in it.
Yeah. I'm not even messing with the thin ones. I've only ordered the wide ones for my store.
I don't sell the thin ones. I won't do it.
Yeah, I think about it too. And this is something that I kind of picked up from Sam Slishman, talking about for the kids, because on a kid's extremity, you're not going to have to put probably the amount of force you will on like you or me.
Right.
So I was thinking like, well, it would put less pain on a kid and still work. Yeah. Do everything you need it to do. So
I use a Slishman wrap. Would I use it as a primary tourniquet, first tourniquet on an adult? No. And he knows that. Maybe a thin adult or somebody like that, you probably could, somebody petite, but would I use it as a second tourniquet? Because I think it can get enough pressure, the pressure needed. If that first tourniquet didn't stop the bleeding, it's applied properly, then I think it would get enough pressure that it would. I carry them in all my kits. I think Dr. Slishman, I would love to get him to come out to SRF or something like that, but he's in Commie, California. And have him come out, because I just think he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's just a down to earth guy and what he did. But there's a lot of equipment out there like that I try to show people this is the equipment, and it's on my dime when it comes to it. I get paid to teach the classes, but that stuff, and doesn't take long, but a few classes for a pressure bandage to, you're done with it, throwing it away, got to buy another one, a few more, open them up, and the training tourniquets and all that. But I want the people to get their hands on them. How else are you going to learn? You can't do it by watching. Yeah, there's great YouTube videos out there, and I've done them too, explaining how equipment works. But the best knowledge is hands-on. Get a class where it's hands-on and you're doing it, and do it under stress. A little bit of stress, because you're your level of stress is going to be way up here if you have to do it for real.
Yeah, I finally got some land that I'm working on getting cleared off, and we're going to try to start doing some stuff similar like what you got. I hope I ain't get enough people to get you down here and teach some
Brother,
class.
I'll come down. I'll come down, and if you do a class, I'm in it. You tell me when, and I'm going to come do it, because you learn from each other, and you've got a lot of valuable information to give to people. And I think your delivery and what you're doing, and from the videos you put out, I think is actionable information. And people need to do it. I'm just like you, trying to do this in the whole YouTube space and get your name out there and get it out. But
Yeah.
people should do it. And what you make, the amount is just, I think that when you put that out and you sent that, I was like, man, and I've been playing with it, trying to think of other uses for it too, and mount our stuff, not just a tourniquet, because I think it's a great idea. I mean, I really do. On a rifle, you could put it where it's not in the way, and it's just,
I need to get you one of the new ones too for the stock. I ain't got you that one yet.
No, I would love, I'll order. Do you have them for sale yet?
Yeah, they're on the website.
Okay, I'll order one. I wanted to. I haven't looked in a while. I know when you were first talking about it and stuff, it's going to go out. But I'm glad you said that. Reminded me to get one. But
yeah, I need to,
because I like to show it. I mean, I like to share, John stuff. John is a big influence in my life. That's the whole reason I have a business. Special operations equipment. I carry his equipment. I push it. Andrew from Combat Art Training, I push his stuff. He's a friend of mine. He makes excellent equipment. He's a great instructor. I try to keep everything within our community, to push these people, because it's good stuff, good knowledge, great instructors that I think are sat on, that are suppressed, obviously, in our day and time. But this needs to get out, just like your stuff. I think you do valuable, actionable information in the videos that you produce and you put out. And it's a good broad range of things, and it's family centered, and I think it's important. That's what people are looking for.
Yeah, I try to focus on like the everyday preparedness stuff, and I feel like if I can at least get people thinking about just starting to prepare for daily going to work and stuff,
yeah,
I feel like that will lead into more. So that's kind of the goal there, and eventually get the guys like you and Andrew and start buying some SOE stuff. I love SOE stuff too, man. I know I'm kind of a gear snob, but that's good shit, man. Like you can't beat.
It's bomb proof. I mean,
It is.
I've got SOE with me every day. His wallet. I've got bags surrounding me right now. Amanda told me 2 years ago, I think, how much I'd spent total. She pulled up my account, and I said, "Don't ever tell me that number again."
Yeah.
I mean, I've got it surrounded me right now, and it's not just the lifestyle stuff, but it's gear, because I've got a closet full of medical bags from everybody.
Yeah.
I didn't need to buy new medical bags. I didn't need to buy that stuff, but I bought John's because I know I'll never buy it again. The other bags I've purchased 2-3 times because they fall apart. John's stuff I'll give to my grandkids,
Yeah, exactly.
when I'm long gone. And he's good people. It's somebody you can learn an immense amount of things from. Him and Amanda, and they, twice a year for Self-Reliance, they let 1,000 people invade their home, for several days, and they host it. But John's just somebody that you can, every time you talk to him, you learn something from. And I'm glad I can call him a friend, because I can text him anytime and he always has the answers. And that's why I started my business. And I've relied on him and Amanda to, I asked them questions. Well, how do you do this? How do you do that? They've been in business 35 years. They've made all the mistakes I haven't made. Why wouldn't you go to somebody like that? And I'm lucky to call them a friend, and have, the knowledge of them. But it's also all the people in the community that's around and surrounding us from everywhere, from, Kentucky Sustainable Living, the Mountain Readiness people, but they're all, coming together in a central core, and we see each other and we learn from each other. And those are my friends now. Those are the people I talk to, the people I seek advice from, the people I expect to keep me in line and, keep me centered. So, just being part of that community and getting into it absolutely changed my life. It was watching John's videos that did it. And then I get it on the lives, and then first Self-Reliance Festival, they kept talking about it. I went, I'm going to go see if these people are real. I went down there not knowing one person, walked through those gates all by myself. I didn't know a single soul, and changed my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it started with me watching some of John's videos too. And I felt so, let's see. So the very first time I heard about SOE was actually Fighting Pistol when I went up
Yeah.
Tactical Response. And Steve Davis, he was one of my instructors. Awesome dude, by the way.
Awesome
But
instructor. I'm going
yeah,
to take one of his classes here. I'm trying to work it out. He's got stuff he's posting. I want to get up because he's not too far from me.
yeah, I always try to share his stuff on Facebook. Anybody that's was that Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody up in that area, look up, was it Davis Defense? I think
Yeah,
it's Davis
Davis. Yeah.
Defense. Look that company up, go train with him. That's an awesome dude. But anyway, I noticed on his truck at training, just when we were taking a break, he had like this awesome chest rig. And you know, I at the time I was using Haley Strategic, which is a
Yep.
nice chest rig. That's a very
Yeah.
nice.
Haley makes good stuff.
Yeah. And anyway, I was checking Steve's out, and he was like, "Yeah, man, put it on, you know, check it out." And I was just like, "Dude, this thing is like 10 times thicker
Yeah.
than my rig." And the Haley stuff is not cheap. And I'm
No.
like, man, this thing just feels awesome. I mean, you can just drag it behind the truck up a dirt road and it ain't gonna phase it at all.
Oh
And
yeah. I mean,
so he told me about SOE, so that was it.
yeah, I've spent a lot of money with SOE, and I'm glad I do. I want to support John and his business, but his gear is just bomb proof, and it's real stuff that you could take, and it's stuff you could train with. I know people who had training gear and then their real gear that they keep apart because their training gear would get beat up and some of it would start falling apart and stuff.
Yeah.
John's, you train with it, throw it, drag it behind your truck,
Yeah.
dig ditches with it, whatever, it's going to work. I mean, people look at the medical backpack, I've got, and I mean, I've taken that everywhere the last, I don't know, 3-4 years. I've had it 4 years, and it still looks brand new. And I mean, I don't know how many times it's been thrown around, dropped to the ground, everything worked, out of it, just beaten up. There in an EMS bag I know, or any type of medical bag I know, as much of abuse as that thing is taken, used it in classes, stuff that still holds up, and it looks brand new. I'd wipe the dirt off of it and stuff, and there it goes.
Yeah, man.
And his gear is just it's bomb proof, but it's being part of that community, going to like Self-Reliance festivals. The amount of knowledge that's there. It's just you come away from that thing overwhelmed. Every time I do, because just so much is there and so many good people.
Yeah, man. That's anybody that hasn't been to that. If you're, if Tennessee's driving range for you, you need to check that out. We went earlier this April. That's where I met you at face to face.
Yep.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. And like I said, you meet lifelong friends, and you just it's people who teach you and keep you accountable, and it's just, I mean, I laugh more on that week, that during that whole week I'm there than I do all year. And I mean, I look forward to it. It's like a vacation. I'm working, I'm running my vendor booth, I'm teaching classes, I'm speaking and stuff, but it's like vacation for me, because you get to see people, and it's kind of like a big, huge family reunion that you actually enjoy going to. It's not one you're dreading that you're going to duck in for. I'll make my appearance and get out as soon as I can. It's that family reunion that you want to be there the whole time with everybody and see everybody.
Yeah, and one of the things we always get in our field is, how do I find people that have the same interest in me? How do I build community? Guys, places like SRF. That's where
Kentucky
you go.
Sustainable Living. That goes, and there's several things that are popping up, but just you'd be surprised who and now I'm seeing all these alliance, Homestead Alliance Facebook groups popping up from different counties and stuff like that. That's where you meet these people, and you'd be surprised how many people you meet that have the same, they're like-minded like you. They enjoy the same stuff, and just stuff you can learn from. People you can bounce ideas off of it, and just everything. And the next thing you know, you've got lifelong friends, people you can count
Yeah.
on when you need it.
Yeah, I mean that's why me and you're in alive right now is SRF, I think.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And it's I feel fortunate to get to meet people like you that I would have never met them. I would have
yeah,
never met any of these people if it hadn't been for that and the other stuff. And I'm glad because it spreads that whole network out. And now at this point, I could travel across country in just about every single state. I know somebody now
yeah,
that if I broke down, I could call and get help from. Um, I'm pretty sure in North Carolina alone, I can go to just about every county now, and there's going to be somebody close by that I could call, and I have their phone number too and contact information. But it's I think it's great, and I want to be able to, and I'm trying to make a really effort to go to people, go to things like you getting that land, you're going to start doing class stuff. I want to come down and see it because you learn stuff from it. No matter what, how long you've done this, you never stop learning.
yeah, I agree. And even teaching classes, um, like at the fire department where I've been teaching a lot of stop the bleed classes, there's always like EMTs and paramedics who'll take it. Heck, man, I learned stuff from them too in there.
Sure.
Just some of the questions and stuff that experiences that they've had too. So
Yeah, you could always learn from experience and people doing, but I also learn, it's funny, I'll teach classes and somebody will come up with something or say something or what about this way? Or have you ever think of something that you're like, why did I think of that? I've been doing this 30 years and I never thought of that. What's wrong with me? I mean, it's just I always have that. You learn from each other. That's why I try to say I'm not teaching, I say I'm teaching a class, but we're training together. I'm
yeah,
passing on some skill and knowledge, but we're all training together and we learn from each other. And and I enjoy doing that. I had several kids in my class this past week, and I'm seeing more and more kids in my classes, which is great. When you can have a 7-year-old stapling somebody and putting tourniquets on and doing all that stuff. I mean, I think it's great. That's stuff that they're going to be able to keep with them their whole life. Those are life skills that they're
yeah,
going to have at that early age.
yeah. The last class I did, there was like a 9-year-old girl. Somebody brought their daughter, and she had learned to put tourniquets on that night. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, and they like doing it because if they're with their parents, they get to put a tourniquet on, hurt their parents. They think that's the greatest thing. They just
I know.
giggle like crazy.
Yeah, she had a blast, man. It was funny.
Yeah, I mean, the kids always want to put a staple on their parents' arm or something when we do it, and of course, we clean and disinfect and do all that stuff. But show them it's not a hard skill. I mean, you know, modern medical society has got everybody thinking this is rocket science. And yes, to be a doctor, you have to go to school, you have to have skills. And yeah, I mean, I get hate about some of the things I teach. They go, well, you can't teach that. I can show anybody anything. I'm not certifying them. I'm not certifying them to go out and open Joe Blow's wound care clinic. I'm not doing
Right.
that. This is just knowledge from experience that I'm passing on because people want to be more prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I've even caught a little bit of flack for some, even just stop the bleed class. People's like, "Oh, you ain't a paramedic." I'm like, "Dude, my training resume is on my website." I'm like, "Trust me, the guys I've been learning from and it's been teaching me this stuff, like they're."
Well, I would rather go somebody who's been in the military, who's seen that stuff, who's been exposed to that stuff, because that's real world experience,
Yeah,
and there's people who know things, and yeah, there are some people out there that are bozos teaching, but it's if you watch what they teach and how they teach, it's technique. If somebody has a passion for it and they really want to do good with what they're doing, they know their name. You put your name out there, you better be doing it right and be on the up and up. And I know you're that person. I've seen your videos. I see what you do. And that's one of the things that impresses me about you and what you give. I think you're slept on, to be perfectly honest. I think you're somebody who your stuff needs to be out there more. More people need to be aware of it because you're passing on valuable, actionable information.
well, I appreciate that. And one thing I'm not scared of too when it comes to teaching anything, whether it's firearms or medical, if I don't know, I'm gonna tell you I don't know.
Yeah, I do too.
I,
I don't know. Well,
I,
I'll find out.
yeah, I got plenty of guys like you I can reach out to, and I promise you, like we're gonna find out the correct way of
I
this.
had, and people ask me, "Do you know how to?" No, I don't know how to do that. It's out of my wheelhouse. I don't teach that. I'm fortunate. I have a lot of experience. I've taken a lot more advanced training over the years and stuff that I've done and where I've worked to give me the experience, but I don't know everything. I don't consider myself an expert. I still take classes. I still learn. It's just passing on knowledge. It's passing on skills, and everybody can do it. And I think they should be prepared. When I started doing this, I saw a gap in the training of what do you do after you stop the bleed. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's teaching it. And I think you need to do that. I've been deployed to the Hurricane Katrinas and Gustavs and, all the different hurricane. I can't remember their names anymore, and tornadoes. When that affects it, when there's no hospital system, city of New Orleans, no hospitals, after that disaster, what do you do? People died because they couldn't get simple things taken care of, and they turned into big things. Well, you're it. You're the only one who's going to help you. So you need to know these skills, and it's important because it does happen. It's not just a grid down situation, and the way our country is, it's becoming more and more likely. But in the way the world is, but also just plain disasters, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, things like that you need to be prepared for. And it may only be a day or two, but it may be 2 months, maybe 6 weeks. Whatever the case is, you need to be prepared for that and have those skills to take care of yourself and your family.
Yeah, I agree totally. And which I guess we're getting close to an hour, but on closing, I definitely want to reiterate to everybody, it's awesome to have all the gear in the world, but in the end, it's going to be the amount of training you got. Like, it's going to be the skills that you got was actually going to keep you alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the most important prep you can invest in is training. It's knowing how to use that equipment. Yes, get the equipment, get the stocks, get all that. Take the firearms, get the firearms and all the equipment. Take the training so you know how to use that tool. Medical supplies are nothing more than tools that facilitate allowing you to do that job, but you've got to have the training and be able to take that skill and knowledge to use that equipment. It's all useless if you don't.
Yep, 100% agree. So, guys, that's your reminder to get out and get legit good training. Go to SRF. There's plenty of guys up there from everywhere.
I'm going to be at SRF. I'm doing a advanced wound care and wound closure day-long class on Thursday, one of the workshops. Sonny's teaching a class the same day, which always makes me mad because we've been doing that. But Friday, they're doing if you want just a mini exposure to stuff, they're doing it's the first time they've done this as a boot camp where it's just like hour-long little sessions throughout the day that you could sign up for all of them. I'm doing one, Sonny's doing one, John's doing one. There's all kinds of people. They're just teaching a little hour-long skills thing that you can get a taste of and figure out, hey, I need this, kind of open your eyes up of the training you need. And then you get to meet all these people and sit in on incredible, speakers, just of everything you could think of. And Kentucky Sustainable Living at the end of October last week, and I'll be there doing a class too, and incredible speakers there to supply with all these people are going to be at these festivals. Get out to them because that's a great way to meet people and get good training and figure out the training you need. And so you can go to the tactical response and, your classes and other people who are doing it, Davis and, Jay Gibson, all these people everywhere that are training classes that, recommend, because you're going to meet the people who are going to recommend the right people for you to get training from.
Yeah, definitely. It's like SRF, the price it costs to go to SRF and these places, it's more than worth it. It's
$50 for a ticket for 2 days with all those speakers. Come on. Yeah. This one, Bear's going to be there. You get to see John. You get to, all those people who are going to be there just for that. Come on. Where else can you sit down and talk with them?
Shake their hand.
Shake their hand and have a 20, 30-minute conversation with them, interact with them, even go eat dinner with them. You don't know.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, Chuck, anybody that's not subscribed to Homestead Medical, you need to be. And I guess on closing, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. And
sure. Homesteadmedical.us is my website. I'm on all the social medias, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all that under Homestead Medical. I've got classes coming up next weekend in Newton, North Carolina. And then I've got the festivals coming up. I've got a class coming up in September. It'll be in West Virginia, and I'm scheduling out some other classes. And we'll have the live tissue class scheduled here before too long. So just check my website or just get a hold of me if you have any questions. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe to my channels, and definitely subscribe to Jay's channels and Prepared Citizens. And you're going to get valuable actionable information from him also.
All right, guys, y'all heard it. Get out and get training, and we will see y'all on the next one.
See you later.